Good day and welcome to today's webinar. It's one that I've been excited about for quite some time. As you can see on your screen, it's called the AI Content Engine You Wish You Had. And it's going to be a little bit more of a practical session from some of those that you've seen before, where of course we typically discuss strategy, ideas, theory. Whereas today what we want to do is get a little bit hands-on because let's be honest with you, there's a lot of talk about AI, but does it really work? Does it work in practice? And I'm very excited to introduce to you very shortly some key people who are going to make sure that we can take that journey ahead. The first thing I want to do is just give you a little bit of an impression as to why. I mean, let's just say for a moment, the answer is yes. Let's just say that you can have the budgets. Let's just say compliance has waved it through. Cutting edge tech is here and it is ready and it is waiting for you. And the question in that situation is, what do you actually build now? What do you create? Because there are so many different things we could create. What is that perfect platform? What does it look like? So I think that we're going to have a fun time exploring that today. Let me introduce you to some of the people who are going to do so. This is me, of course, you can skip past that. Let me first introduce Susanna. So Susanna joins us. She's recently begun at Nordic Pharma. She's someone I've known for quite a few years in our industry, primarily during her time at Grunenthal. And of course, she is Marketing and Launch Excellence Director. She's got experience across CAM, across sales, across marketing, multi-channel, and of course, passionate about patient centricity and customers. In my time with Susanna, I've really enjoyed seeing her speak up on a range of issues and tackle the cutting edge in our industry, wherever it may be. Casper is going to be our chief product consultant on today's webinar. And he, I know actually best from his time most recently at Ferring, but he's also been a leader for several years across Novo Nordisk, AstraZeneca, Leo, and has lived and worked in many different parts of the world as an omnichannel transformationalist, if I can invent a term, and of course is now responsible for a product called Arcane that you're going to see from him in a few minutes' time. Grassa is somebody who I've got to know just recently. She's the Global Digital Excellence Head at BR, and she is someone who has experience outside of our industry, which of course makes her the typically most valuable person in the room. Gasser, I'm really pleased to see that you are joining with a passion for digital strategy and change management, but also that behavior that's consumer driven and that is expected so much of us these days as we grapple to cope with the rising expectations of HCPs ahead of us. So I want you to introduce yourselves in the chat window now that you've been introduced to our panelists. And I want you to say just where you're calling in from, why you've decided to join this webinar, what is particularly interesting and important to you, what do you really want to get out of today's session. We are recording today's session. You don't need to ask me for a recording. It will be sent out to you afterwards. And of course, I want to remind you that all of our panelists are speaking on their own behalf, not necessarily representing their companies. I do also want to ask you all a poll question. So if you wouldn't mind looking at your screens now, you should see it pop up. You can see it's a two-part question. What's your biggest motivation for attending the session? So we've got multiple answers there. And how would you describe your current governance model? So if you wouldn't mind answering that in the chat, in the poll, that would be wonderful. And what I've actually got for you, you might recall that when you signed up for today's webinar, that you signed up, you answered a question on the way in as you registered. Let's have a look at the results of that now, shall we? So the question was, how would you describe your current approach to content creation and delivery? You can see that over a quarter of you are saying it varies by brand or market. There's really no single system at all. Closely in second place, 25%, global to local split, so frequent rewrites at market level. We're going to come on to that topic shortly. 16% manual and inconsistent, everything's built ad hoc. 13.9% modular in theory, but reuse is rare, and 11.1% centralized but slow, going through a bottleneck, and finally modular and automated. This is perhaps the aspirational segment, and only 6.9% of you on that. There was also a second question. What's the biggest blocker to improving your content performance today? 26.1%, too many manual steps or outdated workflow. 20.3% lack of internal ownership or organization or direction. 15% too much content, not enough clarity. 13% local market pushback. 11% compliance slowing or reversing the program, compliance getting the blame. 8% or 9% poor leadership buy-in or insufficient support or budget. And only 4.3% of people, a little bit sad, saying there are no blockers at all, no excuses. So very interesting. I think you can all say that you are safely in the right place today. We do have some work to do. And yes, we do think that AI has a place to play in improving many of the things. So I'm going to close the poll and see what answers you guys came up with to the two new questions. So firstly, what was your biggest motivation for attending this session? Well, 48%, nearly half of you saying to see what's actually possible with AI. And in second place, 20% inspiration. Inspiration for what's possible with fewer constraints. Similar answers, you could say 70% altogether want to see what's new and what's possible. And then the second part, how would you describe your current content governance model? A bit more of a spread on this one, but the highest was 23% saying we are trying to standardize, but it is messy right now, followed by 20% on global sets strategy, but local adapts tactically. Now, that's all very interesting. What we're going to do is we're essentially going to split up this conversation into four main chapters. And as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 listed on the screen in front of you. And the first one, content discovery and reuse, is a perennial problem I hear about all the time. The stats are quite shocking for the amount of content that doesn't either reach customers or reaches customers in a very singular fashion. And it begs to wonder how much effort is wasted. All of that production, all of that creativity, all of that MLR review, and all of that distribution potentially going to waste. So where can the AI help us with that? That's the first chapter. Secondly, efficient global to local models. Not a day goes by where we don't hear an argument about global to local, and indeed, I'm sure many of you have them on that regular basis. Most of the people listening to this will, of course, be from global rather than local affiliates, but trust me, they can be very vocal, especially larger affiliates, and getting that right is something that we pray to the technology gods might finally be achievable. And thirdly, customers expect personalized. This is alluding to what I said when I was doing my introductions, that HCP's expectations are higher than they've ever been. Why? Because the whole of their lives have been inspired by a certain minimum level of quality. And they are expecting every time they turn on Netflix for personalized content, and they are expecting every time they interact with pharma, personalized or at least segmented content. And then finally, an over-reliance on agencies. We've seen a lot of companies as of late trying to in-house a lot of activity. I myself believe that this will be a relatively short-lived phenomenon and that agencies, consultancies will thrive once again as we realize that their talents and their ability to see across clients and to work independently actually brings us back a lot as well. And I do think that that over-reliance on agencies will be short-lived, but we will, of course, see how technology might be able to solve a lot of that in the short term as well. Okay, so exciting chapters. And the first thing I'd like to do is, of course, ask the two people who work for pharmaceutical companies in the room, that is, of course, Graça and Susanna, to share some of what they would articulate as being their greatest challenge, specifically on that first chapter, the content discovery and reuse. If you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about how you would put this in your own words and where the pain points really are. Thank you.
I can start. So content is our most probably valuable asset in pharma, and content will always be king. Content is our it's the way we present ourselves to our customers, and in pharma, the nature of the business, content is highly scrutinized and doesn't come out easily. We need to go through approval. We know the hassle. And it has always been like that. It's not a new thing. Content was always a topic. It was 20 years ago, and it's today. Today, content becomes this big thing and this big topic because in the digital world, in the omni-channel world, the requirement is not only that the content is engaging, attractive, reliable, and meaningful, but the operation behind the content is by far more complicated than it was, because it comes with a data structure, it comes with the tagging and all that digital entails. Now, are we prepared for that? Clearly we were not. And this revolution came much faster than we expected, and most companies were not prepared for that. Now, on the top of this, we are not seeing all this great opportunity of AI coming to support us. And what, in my opinion, in my experience, what we are seeing is that we haven't yet ever solved the topic of how does pharma manage content, when now we have a much more complicated operation of content. And that is why I'm a firm believer that we will need AI to support us on that.
I agree. I would like to add on top of what Susanna was saying, is like, and it's something that I face every day, is like, because as Susanna said, like content is a must. We all need the content, and sometimes I know that we have a lot of valuable content inside the company and like across the different markets. So for me, I see sometimes that we are investing a lot of money, a lot of times, and going on all this process that Susanna was mentioned, and I think everyone in pharma feels this, right? The content process. But we are missing an opportunity here, because we know that killing and destroying the barriers, for example, of understanding what Germany is doing, what Spain is doing, and then also global can adapt what is already done by locally, you know, and have like these synergies and enrich these synergies. So for me, I think it's a great opportunity. So I'm very excited to see how can AI help us like destroying these barriers and create more and more synergies. And of course, as a result, reducing costs and times, and to make it possible, the time to market reduce significantly, because we don't need to create everything from scratch. We can reuse what we have and give it, I don't know, focus on a different key message or whatever, you know, but in order to create novelty and innovation, even through what we already have. So that I will very curious to see how we can improve this.
Thank you, Greta, and also thank you to Susanna before that. So content discovery and reuse, it's, as you've just explained, it's mission critical. And Casper, I don't know if you've got any comment on what Susanna and Greta just said, or if you want to jump straight into showing us a little example of how we might be able to manage this better going forward.
I don't know, I do both, Paul, and I completely agree with what's been said. In my experience from working in companies that had Viva Vault, for example, where you put in a lot of good content, but suddenly you have 50,000 documents, and how do you actually find anything in there for reuse? It can, and if you don't use Vault, then you might have other problems as well. So what we would like to show today is a tool that helps you actually find things in your digital asset management. So I'll just share a little demo of how an AI tool called Arcane works in doing that. Arcane is a tool built by Anthill that is connected directly to the customer's digital asset management system. So for example, Viva PromoMats or Viva Vault or similar systems. And the idea here is that contrary to other AI tools that you may use, Arcane only uses the already approved documents from your digital asset management as its source of creating answers and so on. So here you see the user interface of Arcane, the AI tool, and it looks like a lot of other tools that you may have been using already. But here in this case, I just want to show how you can find content in your Viva Vault just using natural language. So now it's looking at the documents that are already approved in Viva Vault. So here I'm saying find clinical publications about Alzheimer's disease. And here quickly it found 3 relevant resources, a clinical study here, and then I can easily open it up and find it here and read it if I want. But if I sit in another country with a different language, I'm Danish, so why not translate it to Danish so I can read this clinical paper in Danish? So it could also be other types of materials. I can translate them into any language I like. So, and I can put these documents into a collection. So, you know, over time, as I have documents I go back to, for example, this clinical study, I can have it in a collection I can return to. I can also use some filters to find by country or by types of material. Let's say I want to find campaign material in Viva Vault, and now I'm searching in my local language, Danish, so it understands any language, of course. So now I'm looking for documents related to Remapan, our brand here. And yeah, I can translate those into my local language as well if I don't understand English. I can also search for materials in any other country I want. So let's say I just want to search for emails across markets or so on. It will find Chinese emails and translate them into English. Here I'm showing a smart feature that can help create content. These are called quick prompts. And you know the power of the prompt. The longer the prompt, the better the outcome is. And here I'm asking it to explain the Remapan campaign plan to me and then suggest 5 prompts so I can understand it even better. So now it's looking for documents in Viva Vault about the Remapan campaign, and it's, you know, making it in an easy to understand language, summarizing the most important points from all the documents that it found related to this, and also giving me 5 prompts here so I can explore it a bit further. The cool thing here is I have direct links to the documents that it is basing its answer on. And these documents, as mentioned, are all in my Viva Vault. So the whole truth that it's generating the responses on here are from Viva Vault. So in that way, at least compared to how I used to do it, it's now much easier to explore and find documents across languages. Let's say I want to find best practice emails or something like that. Then it will search across languages, find emails in Chinese or in Japanese and translate them back to the language I am using. And that makes it a lot easier for me to repurpose and reuse content. Yes, that's it.
Thank you, Kasper. I have a question, and I know it's a question, I haven't actually seen the question today, but I know it often comes up immediately when this kind of thing is shown, and it's the question about control and hallucination, of course. Can you just say a quick word about what you have to make sure that we are not compromising our risk in the hands of, for example, junior or less well-trained staff who aren't aware of what should or should not be said?
It's a really important question, because that's the hesitation of using ChatGPT, for example, or other, is that it will bring in all the knowledge it has from browsing the world of both fake and real information. And it can sometimes hallucinate. Arcane does not. It's specifically made for the pharma industry, and it only uses your approved documents as the source of truth. So it never goes outside, never looks at the internet. It only looks at those documents. And you can narrow down what it looks at to specific documents or collections and so on. So you know exactly how it's, what it's basing its answers
So
on.
you've got control of that scope, is what you're saying. Yeah.
You have a lot of control. Actually, you have full control over it. And even if you sit in a, you know, in a position where you worry about the responses it can create, you know that it's only using approved, pre-approved materials. So anything in your digital asset management should have gone through legal and medical and so on compliance reviews.
So Casper, in practice, has that actually meant that people have really seen a confidence boost, and that the actual content volume has been higher because and throughput has been higher in practice because of that confidence in practice?
Absolutely. So there are two sides to it here. I just showed you how you could find documents and consume documents you already have in your digital asset management. So that's one way in, right? To, you know, reuse things that have already been created in the company rather than recreating something that was there already. So let's say it's a campaign or something. You don't have to recreate. You can actually just find it quite easily and digest it and then repurpose for your own campaign.
And those of you listening in, can you make sure you please do ask any questions you might have? If you were in a one-to-one with Casper, ask the same questions that you would during a meeting like that. And query this. This is, you know, not just supposed to be a demo, but a demonstration of what may or may not be possible going forward. Susanna and Graça, I am relying on you, of course, for your reaction to what's being seen, and, you know, your experience in using tools and your concerns or opportunities that come across your minds when you're witnessing this technology. Tell me more.
I don't have experience with this or any other similar tool, and what I can see is a world of opportunity, assuming, and I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, Casper, that everything that it's done within the tool, it's traceable and we can obtain reports from here. So if I am in a global role, I will be able to understand what has been recreated, what has been taken by the affiliates. And on the other hand, if I am in an affiliate, I can easily understand what my global team has been made available.
So just to answer that part of your question, one part of the tool is to pull out and all the knowledge that you have inside the company in your digital asset management, like Viva Vault, right? And then repurpose it, but it doesn't send anything out of your company.
Of course, no.
Everything stays within. So you would need to follow normal procedure in terms of getting it approved. So let's say you recreate an email or a campaign material, that would still need to run through your normal approval.
Of course.
It would be a little bit faster because you know it's based on something that is already okay.
Something has been approved for distribution, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, like I'm with Susanna again. The fact that I never used this, but I see a lot of potential, and I think in our positions, I'm a digital marketeer is where I see AI like acting and really making difference. So content, it's something that we all struggle, and I love to see, or it looks very easy, and it will help us a lot, like to improve this efficiency of reusing content.
Amazing, amazing. And I have seen quite a few audience questions coming in that I think Casper is going to be the expert. So Casper, maybe you want to answer those ones by typing, because I would like to move on to this next chapter, which you can obviously see on your
I will not answer them right now. So
oh, okay, fine.
I'll definitely answer any question afterwards. It's just want to focus on you guys on there.
Fair enough. No multitasking. Let's have the focus. Okay, so global to local content models. obviously, I'm exactly the sort of person that finds that their shoulder is used an awful lot in the sob stories that I hear between global and local from both sides. If I'm totally honest with you, I never really know exactly what to say. Susanna and Grasa, I want to hear from you again. How would you articulate the challenge here? You already heard me attempt to do it earlier. How would you? Yeah,
This is good. It's my favorite topic, actually. Not my favorite, but the one that actually I think we are struggling the most. So I feel like, or I mean, me as manager, I see my team really struggling with this. So I really feel the need to freeing like my experts, right, to focus on strategy and creativity. And at certain point, I see them not wasting, but using a lot of their time with this, right? Because so the time to market, again, it's huge because first it needs to go global, then it needs to go, we need to go like localization process with each country, etc. So I think finding a solution where it's compliant, and Casper also touched this, I think another very important aspect is like we really need to have everyone feeling safe using this tool, right? So I think having like the security and having everything in the same environment will help us a lot. So I see a lot of opportunities here, again, in reducing times, but also with the human touch and the human management in the sense that we really need our marketeers to work as marketeers and think in strategy and not being like managing modular content reuse and compliance documentation and now go medical and now like who is the next. So even struggling with the lack of discipline on tagging content, etc., etc. So I think this aspect has these two advantages that I can see AI helping us.
I couldn't agree more. And this is another one of those million-dollar questions that has never been solved. I personally, and those who know me better know that I'm always talking about global. And in my experience, from big pharma to smaller pharma, this issue is always a very complicated one, and it's always depending on the company culture. Mm-hmm. And it's the easier the process is, the easier it is to manage. So definitely, I'm with Grasa. The easier we can make the process, and if a tool helps us to manage the process in a very smooth way, with a place where easily the affiliates can find the content, where they feel it's not a pain to replicate content and localize content, it's obviously of benefit. And on the other hand, from a global perspective, if everything is on a platform where the global team feels that they are still in control and that we are keeping the brand's identity in the most consistent way possible, and me being a marketeer by DNA, at the end of the day, we want to keep a brand identity. That's why we have this global oversight. So yes, definitely this type of platform and using AI can be a contribution to solve the global million-dollar question.
Well, ironically, I think it's worth probably billions rather than millions these days, Susanne. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to launch another poll, and I'm also going to ask Casper to show us, if possible, show us, whatever, what the AI can do to solve this perennial issue that's, as has just been hinted at, will probably never fully go away, but we are dreaming of an answer.
Absolutely. I just wanted to say that I've sat in global function and I've sat in local function and regional function, and I've experienced the different dynamics. So sitting in global, trying to standardize and say we waste too much resource in the recreating campaigns, they should just use the global one. It's the best one. And then I've also sat on the other side in Logo and said, well, I can't use any of this because it's not fit for my market, it doesn't live up to my compliance rules and so on. So I have to start all over and contact an agency. So I've tried both, and it seems like it's hard to find the right balance. So that's probably why it's a billion-dollar question. But I think some of these tools like Arcane can take us a step of the way, because they might make some steps less necessary than before. But let me just show you here. Again, you recognize the platform here. Let's create a global piece of content. Create an email introducing Remapan to an HCP that is focused on patient outcomes and likes patient well-being is my prompt. So we sit in global, now we're creating a piece of material. Again, Arcane uses your Viva Vault as the source of truth. So everything here should be easier to get approval in your global approval process. This is very nice, and you can see it's you have all the related resources. It's marked up. I know where it's gotten the different things from, so I can click on these bubbles and actually get an access directly to the document in Viva Vault. So that's nice. But let's say I sit in a local affiliate and I receive this email. I sit in the UK and I want to make sure that it actually lives up to my local code of conduct, the ABPI. And I also want to make sure I highlight what didn't work in my country and rewrite the email so that it is actually compliant to the UK code of conduct. So here it's evaluating the email from global that I just created. Where are some of the issues? Which clause does it refer to? And it does write a new email highlighting the changes with the bold, and also gives a short summary of the changes made to improve the compliance. So that makes it a lot easier when you sit in the local affiliate in UK to send it through approval, because you know what has been changed. You can compare it to something that was already approved from global, and global can also understand what was changed and why it needed to be changed. So you don't need to have that long debate about that. So that's a very helpful thing you can do with a tool like Arcane. So yeah, I wish I had that when I was working in global. So on to the next.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for illustrating that. I'm going to end the poll at this point as well. And once again, I want to know from Susanna and Grace if they think that what Casper has just been showing us goes some way to solving this issue. What are your thoughts?
I think it helps solving the dialogue between the silos into regulatory, medical, and marketing. And that is one of those barriers that takes the time to market of a content sometimes longer, because once we start the conversation between the reference, the citation, the quotes, the anchoring, sometimes it starts delaying and delaying and delaying, and it costs time, money, and relationships. So, and that increases the silos, and silos have always been a thing in pharma and in the corporate world. Can help reducing those silos, and certainly are a benefit in reducing the time to market of any piece of content. And we all know that in the omni-channel world and in the digital world, time to market is of essence. I can't react and I can't activate a campaign if it will take me 3 months before I've approved a piece of content. And we know it can take 3 months and even 6 sometimes. So definitely, yes, Graça, I don't know if you agree, but
yes, totally. I find it super interesting, and I think I love the fact of being surprised how this conversation goes, in the sense that when we think about content and AI, we think about how we will speed up, right? And how we will make like the time for market shorten. And I think Susanne and myself, we touched two important points that it's actually also helping us, right? Is the fact of freeing our teams of this ping pong approval process, right? And improving the relationships from global to local, right? And I think what I saw now in Arcane, it looks like it will help a lot, because I think we all recognize the feeling of like, I can't believe it that is referenced now, you know, or it just identifying now on the third round, you know, why it didn't appear before. So I find also adding this advantage of improving like relationships and reducing tensions on this approval process, amazing. So I think we have a double win now here. You are mute, Paul.
Thank you, thank you. Always good when the host of a webinar puts himself on mute, isn't it? Well, I was saying, Casper, you seem to have some support in the room, which is great to see, but also some way to go. And actually, I'm going to come in a second to one of the comments in the webinar chat. Just quickly, though, the poll is closed, as you can see. You can see that my three-part question, where do you believe AI could add the most value? It's speed, which got nearly 2/5 of the vote. Speed particularly towards modular. Everything else getting much less. What's the biggest concern? Compliance and approval. Despite your conversation about hallucination, that is still the winning choice, Casper, followed by quality. And I think that, I don't know if you agree with me, 2 years ago, when most of us were seeing the first AI chatbots, I think we were impressed and lenient towards the AI. Now, of course, just 2 years on, we are angered unless it's absolutely perfect every single time. And our expectation of quality has really been pushed through the roof. So that's not a surprise to see 22% people there. And then we've got a clear winner on the final question. Your current use is, no surprises, piloting. Over 2/5 of you saying that. Very few, 8% of people saying embedded in everyday operations. No surprise. I mentioned that I wanted to come to a webinar comment, and forgive me for this one, Casper. You're probably not expecting this one, but I think it's a good question. The biggest challenge, this is from Furkovic. The biggest challenge is that everyone tries to solve, oh, it's just disappeared. Oh, there we go, back to my screen. The biggest challenge, everyone tries to solve current process with AI instead of changing the process with AI adoption. With AI, you don't need modules, or you don't need to struggle with global to local reuse. AI can indeed transfer or translate any email, CLM slide, or other source into content of your customer's need. Therefore, we should be identifying new capabilities and rebuilding the processes around it. And I'm interested, Casper, you obviously have a product, and it's natural to fit with the world as it is today. I mean, you've got to, you know, slot into existing workflows. But do you think 2 years from now, we're going to see that AI has rethought the actual process itself? Do you think that Susanne, who's new to her job, as I said at the beginning of this, should be trying to replicate what has been done in other companies, or should be rethinking what using AI, what the structure should be?
And I think it's a really good comment or question in the chat, actually. I love this question because, as we talked about in the beginning, neither global to local or fully local models are ideal. And that's why I've seen all the time a pendulum sort of swinging from one end to the other. Now we globalize. Global to local is very strict, and then it swings the other way. And now it's only local, fully empowered. And neither of them have been fantastic for various reasons. But maybe now we can actually get the best of two worlds by having these tools and, you know, rebuilding the processes, as is alluded to in the comment. Because maybe in global, you only build the most important assets like a brand identity and some core assets around science and maybe core claims. That's it. And then you load it into your Arcane or similar AI, if it existed. And then locally, you actually, from those building blocks, you just create the assets locally rather than waiting for something coming from global. And that way you can actually get the best of both worlds, because you have the local speed and control and flexibility and understanding of the customers, while still having the efficiency from using these very expensive assets of campaign, and call claims and things like that. So maybe we are stepping in that direction, and I find that super exciting, because the other two models are always hard.
Well, thank you so much. And there's a couple of other interesting comments in the chat that I might get time to address before we finish. For now, I want to launch one more poll question and then move on to the third chapter, which is customers expecting personalized content. And I said at the beginning that I think this is driven so much by, of course, people's lives outside of pharma, their expectations. Personalization is something that we were seeking to achieve pre-pandemic, for those of you whose memories last long enough, but it really has gained a lot of hope and force ever since then. So again, Susanna, Graça, I want to begin with you, if that's okay. I want to hear about your ambition levels on personalization. What do you feel is realistic? What do you feel that we should be aiming for? Do you believe that we should be aiming for a segment of one? Or do you think that's overkill? Do you think that we should be focusing on the message more than the personalization? What are your thoughts?
So I said content is king. Personalization brings the experience for the customer, and experience is queen. And the king and the queen together will bring the engagement. That's how I see it, and that's my ambition. Now, how far should we go? That will depend a lot on the market. That will depend a lot on the therapeutical area. The customer will dictate that for us. So I think there are barriers, of course, and those barriers are compliance, those barriers are legal. But I'm a firm believer that most of those barriers are internal and are our own internal barriers. But definitely, personalization is how we should engage, because our customers.
Yeah, your audio crackled for me personally a little bit there, but Susanna, we're getting the main thrust of what you're saying, so keep going.
But again, in order to have personalization, the content process needs to be seamless and as painless as possible. Again, AI, a platform, AI powered, needs to be in play so that we can manage it in a way that is not killing us and that is properly possible to manage.
Excellent. Graça.
I think this is my biggest question about AI and the biggest challenge, because, okay, I can see AI solving the problems of speed, as we mentioned before. Like, for me, it's very easy to see, right? But this is not just about speed. Yes, we will improve the process. Perhaps we will have tons of content. And I saw here in the chat, and actually bringing back your first words in the webinar, the fact that most of the content we don't use, right? So I think we need to find like this balance between like the speed and relevance, consistency, and of course compliance, right? So in my point of view, when we talk about personalization, in my mind, of course, it comes like, how can I segment my content, my audience, the markets, the different contexts that I have, right? In a very, very easy and of course fast way, but still relevant. So I think not only with this, but how can we be human in this kind of communication, right? And keeping this personalization, delivering relevance and value to our customers.
Absolutely. Well, Casper, I'm going to get you to respond to those things and obviously try and show us what it's like in real life in just a second, but I'm just closed the poll and the results should be appearing on your screen in just a second. What's the biggest barrier to implementing new content technology? Compliance with a quarter of the vote, hesitations around compliance. Also notably difficulty allowing cross-functional and internal capability or training gaps getting a high vote as well. Which of these would be most helpful in building a business case? What do you need to show your CFO? Demonstrable time or cost savings, 4/5, and measurable impact on content performance. Very similar two things there, together taking about 80% of the vote. So that's very interesting. Everything else getting virtually nothing. So that's very interesting indeed. So Casper, any comments on obviously the poll, obviously on what Susanna and Grasser said, and I'm very keen to see if you can once again show us the light.
Thank you. Very good comments. I remember when we started talking about personalization when I worked at Leo Pharma, and we were impressed by Netflix and what you just mentioned in the opening, and we wanted to do the same. But then we hit the pain of how do you actually create that volume of content, because if you have a segment of one, I mean, you have to create a piece of content for every customer. Of course, you can do some automation, but how do you do it in pharma where everything needs to be approved, right? So it is hard to do. And I believe Arcane can take us part of the way. And that's where I would like to show you this. This is the other part, the other half of Arcane, where it's called Author. And the way it works is it assists you in authoring content pieces with an aim of creating personalized content. Here, we're selecting a design system, so that's a template, and we're selecting a collection of documents that I wanted to use to create the content. So it's 8 documents about our brand Remapan. And now on the right side, you see the AI panel reading those 8 documents and telling me what can you actually create content about. On the left, you see an editor of template. So here you can edit each little section manually. You can write just like in PowerPoint. But you can also use the Arcane power here where you're using your approved documents and sources to create content. So now I'm asking it to create an email about our brand Remapan and the efficacy and safety. So it goes to work and starts to fill in the template. And as you can see, it also finds images in my collection of images that are relevant to the content. It's writing a bit faster than I could do myself, at least, filling in the different sections of the template here with relevant content. And it's right now also working on the references. So as we know, everything needs to be marked up before we can send it to approval, but also that's usually the rules. So as you can see here, everything is marked up using the documents in that collection. That all comes from my Viva Vault of approved documents. And what it has done is also to number them correctly. I can click on these bubbles, and then I will get a direct access to the document. I can also go in here and check the references. I can change how they are shown and displayed and so on in the email here. I can correct how it's written, the title of the reference. But this is work that normally would take hours to do, and it's done quite quickly here with this. But we're talking about personalization. So here I have different personas identified. So for this brand, we have general neurologists or geriatricians or GPs. We also have segmentation in terms of adoption ladder. So I can just click these buttons here. Let's say I want to do a trialist. I also want to make it a bit friendlier and more verbose, longer. So now I say, okay, let's rewrite this section of the email we just created with these personas and segments in mind. And the AI will quite quickly rewrite this again based on the approved sources. But now, as you see, it's rewritten. It's fitting the new segment that I've chosen, and it's a bit longer because I asked it to do that. You can also make this section here. Let's try and make that a patient profile. Let's try that here. So I select the section and make this section about a patient profile. And for each of these steps, I could save the version, and then I have one version of the email ready to go in HTML. Now I have new version about Martin, the patient. Also a call to action has been inserted. And I click here, I can see the finalized email and HTML, and the references are, of course, written in the right way. Can download the HTML package with images and send that directly to my Salesforce Marketing Cloud or whatever I use and get it implemented there. Or maybe I should send it to approval first, of course.
Yeah.
We can also create different languages. I chose Portuguese here because my two colleagues here are from Portugal. But I write in my own language, but it can then put in content in Portuguese, as you can see here.
Mm-hmm.
I will let you guys or ladies be the judges of what it's writing here, because my Portuguese is still in development. But as
very modest, Casper. We know you're an expert.
It's looking good.
Okay, you're not unhappy. But I can also edit here. So again, if I want to change, this is a full edit, all right? So I can change the font, color, or bold. All of this is preset by those who control the system. So you can decide which parts of the template should be changed or not. So if you want to put handcuffs on, you can do that. You can also give more freedom. Here we're adding another module because I want to make the email even longer. Can add images, as you can see. This is cute, of the lady here with her grandchild, I hope. You can add your personal touch to the content and write directly, like in PowerPoint, as mentioned. And you can mix it with AI. So I can also say, okay, this section should be created with the help of the AI. So in that way, you can, start to really personalize each of the emails. And, for every step I take here, I can download a version. And, already now when we've been talking for 4 minutes, I've been able to create 4 different emails that I could send for approval and then implement in my customer journeys. And it's quite easy to learn. I mean, any brand manager with a short training can actually operate this tool. It doesn't require, technical skills or coding skills in any way. As you can see, it's pretty easy. There are a few things you need to learn, but it's easy to for example, put in a link here that opens in a new window. And again, yeah, you can look at your documents. That's the final version of this email. I can download it, and that's nice. Super easy.
Very nice.
Just one more thing I want to show. So yeah, it's based on this collection of documents from Viva Vault. So it's only creating content based on those. You can select a clinical study and say, I want to create emails only about the clinical study, or I can select something else. Here I'll be showing something different, but yeah. Last thing is that it saves, of course, all your creations. So every time you make a new version, you have that. You can start and reuse one you have done previously and prompt in that. So in that way, I feel we can now really create many pieces of content. Now I'm just showing email, but it could also be leave behinds, or it could be websites, or it could be detail aids and so on. So yeah, the opportunities are endless, but I really feel it can speed up and enable this personalized content that has been such a bottleneck previously.
Thank you, Casper. And I'm super curious as to whether in actual practice, I mean, obviously, I imagine there's a lot of people watching who are like, wow, that's going to save me so much. And that's a pretty big KPI. But the other KPI, of course, is impact. And have you seen that through this these sorts of things, that it is coming across as personalized and that the data and the metrics support that. And I suppose, I guess I'm asking you is, you're one of the first people on the planet that have managed to automate personalization in pharma content. So is it worth it after we all wanted it for so long?
But I think we all know that personalized content speaks to us more than the general, right? So the email that really speaks to me in the moment I am is the one I click on, and the one that's more general or doesn't hit me is the one I delete, right? So whether it works or not is of course also, I think there's a lot of data showing it. What was the other part of your question? It was if we...
No, that's good enough for me, because we've only got a minute left.
Okay.
And I want to see, Susanne and Gresse, a final sentence from you. I'm also launching a final next steps poll as well. And I haven't actually asked Casper's permission, but I do see a fair few questions in the chat, which seem to be asking specific things. So Lorna, my colleague, has just told Casper that he has to have 5 spots free in his diary next week. I don't actually know if it's true. Casper could actually be on vacation next week for all I know.
I'm here.
We have specified that you've got 5 spots in your diary. And so if you want to just book his time right now, go for it. But anyway, Susanne and Gresse, a sentence from you each, please.
Don't ever underestimate the power of having a solid content process in your ways of working, should you want to go on a digital transformation pathway. That's a key asset. And AI can help for sure. And Casper has 5 slots available next week.
Well, it's probably less than 5 now. Who knows? But
I heard 5.
Gresse, final word.
I think my final word should be like, we should have a second session, right? Like, because I think we have a lot of curiosity and other things to see, and how can AI speed up and help us with personalization. So I'm very curious about what is about to come, and how can I really implement this in my help myself and my team, you know, improving and being more efficient in our jobs. So I'm very, very curious. So let's continue discussing this topic and applying, actually. Thank you.
Well, obviously, enormous thanks to Susanne Gresse for being willing to comment and react. And then Casper, thank you for taking AI from something that is theoretical and wished for in the halls of pharma companies into something which is a bit more concrete now. And for many of us, I'm sure watching, this will be the first time we've actually been hands-on with a tool that is capable, and to see it, obviously, as I said at the beginning, visualization is so useful. We're trying to plan. So guys, I'm going to hold this webinar open for another couple of minutes in case you've got any suggestions or ideas for what you want to see in future sessions, any other comments or thoughts, any questions for Casper, but also for Susanne and Gresse, please jot them down. In the meantime, I want to obviously thank everybody who's been involved for their time and energy in making today's session happen. I've really enjoyed it. And look at that, even the sun is shining in London. It's a new dawn, everyone, in more ways than one. So thank you ever so much, everybody, for your time. I will let you go, as you are already 2 minutes late for your next meeting. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.